Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast in the studio.
Whoop,
Clark and
whoop.
I we're excited. We're
Yes, we
here
are.
to talk about John chapter 18 and what stuck out to us.
hmm And so,
What stuck out to us?
yeah, I guess really the overall theme is you see multiple examples of Peter's way of doing things compared to Jesus' way of doing things.
Yep.
And you just think, how often in my life does that resonate with us? Because
Mhm.
especially if you're a Christian, have grown up in the church, have been to church fairly recently, have read the Bible at all, you know that there are teachings of Jesus that call us to live a certain way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then there's always a natural temptation to do what I want to do and my timing and how I want to do it. So here,
Mhm.
I guess Peter gets ragged on all the time. He's impulsive, he's shooting his mouth, he's acting without thinking. And there's actually a lot of ways that we can connect with him and
Yeah.
go, I understand the temptation to fall back into my own skill set, my own ability, even just what I think is best,
Mhm.
instead of considering what Jesus invites us into.
Yep.
So, yeah, Peter's way of doing things versus Jesus' way of doing things. And I guess the first that kind of comes to mind is just the denial. In John, the other Gospels talk about Peter denying Christ, but John 18 is the chapter that's got Peter's first denial and his second denial and his third denial.
Yeah, it's
Rough chapter for
like you
Pete.
said though, it's you're really able to connect with Peter because sometimes you read the story and you're just like, "Oh no. Oh, yep, here comes Judas."
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh,
and
Judas,
and then those
backstabber.
soldiers. And
That's
so,
right.
and it says Peter's got a sword. And so you think like, "Oh yeah, that like in the natural, like this makes sense in my flesh."
Yeah.
Like I totally get you, Peter.
Yeah.
And
Defending Jesus and
yes. Do you want me to read verses for you?
yeah. So yeah, Peter's denial. You want to read verses like what, 4 through 11, so we're all on the same page.
Okay, hold on. It's a long one.
Buckle up, folks.
Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" So these are the soldiers
Mhm.
that are coming into the garden. "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," he said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with him. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. That's weird. Again, he asked them, "Hey guys, who is it you want?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." "I told you that I am he," Jesus answered. "If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, God bless him, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Oof.
Yeah. So I guess, the passage we just read gets at Peter hacking off his ear. And then after this, Jesus heals him.
Yes.
So again, you compare and contrast the way of Peter versus the way of Jesus. Peter's like, we have to defend ourselves. Let's go to war. I'm going to hack this guy's ear off. We're going to defend ourselves. And then Jesus picks it back up and like
I know. I just picture
slaps it back on his head.
Peter with his little pocket knife or something like, "Jesus, I got you."
Oh, Peter is carrying the Excalibur, some big honking sword. We always joke too that Peter must have horrible aim.
Yeah, he's aiming for that guy's neck.
Yeah, he's going for the throat and he accidentally hacked off his ear. You're like, dude, I don't think you can do that again if you try.
I know. Oh man, God bless you, Peter.
But again, there's one example there of Peter's way of doing things, Jesus' way of doing things.
Yeah.
And then if you back up a little bit, speed up a little bit, go farther down the text, you
Right.
get to verse 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get at Peter's first denial,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is taken, he is arrested. In verse 17, Peter's asked, "Hey, you aren't one of those disciples too, are you?" She asked Peter, and he replied, "I am not." So you go through, then Jesus is getting
then
questioned by the high
again,
priest.
mhm.
Jesus goes before Pilate. But if you go to verse 25, you want to read verses 25 through 27 for us?
Sure. As Peter stood warming himself, he was asked, "You are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear had been cut off, challenged him. "Didn't I see you with him in the olive grove?" Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow.
I never noticed that as one of the
Yeah.
servant's relatives. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I definitely remember that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's got the horrible aim. He hacked off my cousin's ear.
Right.
Oh, man.
And he denies it still.
Yeah. So I guess, again, the way of Jesus versus the way of Peter, the way of Jesus to the way of Clark, the way of Jesus to the way of Bobby, the way of Jesus compared to the way of you, the listener. There are things that come natural, we want to do that'll make us feel good, but how often do we pause and reflect and say, what?
Wait.
Yeah, what's the Spirit doing right now? What has Christ done? How is he inviting me to like live into this situation here? And usually, like Jesus' teachings are pretty clear, pretty strong, and easy to understand, sometimes difficult to live into just because of what we want to do.
And really that can resonate in any moment of life.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, I mean, in my context, I'm thinking parenting. Like it is 110% always better to pause than to react.
Oh, yeah.
And so in any scene that I walk into, I don't know what I'm walking into in a day to day,
For sure.
it's always better for me. I will have a more God honoring response if I pause
Yeah.
before I act.
For sure.
And so, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah. And so anyway, I don't know, with schoolwork, with how last year and how the beginning of 2021 are going, let's take a minute and pause before we respond. Let's actually ask that age old Christian camp question. What would Jesus do?
WWJD.
Yeah.
That's right. But in it too, I think this is one of those stories that if you're at a manual, you have a Bible reading plan, you read the Gospels often. We read them a couple times a year. And you come across a story multiple times. And so it's easy to kind of glaze over and go, yep, I read this. Yep, the soldiers, Peter, yep, that guy ran away without being naked. He got his clothes ripped off him. Then Peter denies Jesus, and Jesus is going to Pilate and Annas and all this stuff. But actually pause and insert yourself into the story and use your imagination and try to like imagine like what was going through their minds when all of a sudden the soldiers showed up. How scary that had to been for them. And then for understanding Peter going, I actually resonate with him. I think I would want to try to defend myself too if your enemy showed up and was trying to arrest the person you love the most for no good reason, And so what's it look like for us listeners to use our imagination and enter into this story? Try to picture yourself with the disciples, with Jesus, and go through this.
Yeah, that's a good word. And specifically in these chapters, like you said, they're kind of like those climax chapters of the story of the coming of the cross and the resurrection. And I mean, a couple questions that we'll just leave you with that we're encouraging ourselves to wonder, and for you guys to ask for a minute too is, well, number one, I guess, can we just thank Jesus for what he's done?
Yeah.
Can we do that? Can we, like Clark said, remember and recall and just thank him?
Yeah.
For what he's done.
Yeah, not taking it for granted because it cost him a lot.
Exactly. And then that's like in all of these things, like when you read the story, when you do, sit contemplatively, when you insert yourself in and you really understand, the gravity of, what this looked like on earth, but even, forever, for all time,
change
what
everything.
this cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe spend some time imagining yourself into this text and also spend some time saying, thanks, God. Like, thank you for doing this for me. Lastly, we got to go back to verse 5 and verse 6. How funny is this? They show up. And they must have had some awkward stare down. Where they're like looking at each other. Right. And Jesus is like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, who are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they thought he was going to hide him.
Jesus of Nazareth?
Yeah.
I'm he. And
yes.
Who are you guys looking for? Jesus of Nazareth. And then it says in verse 6, they drew back and fell to the ground. Like, just imagine like, I don't know if the Spirit's doing something that was something spiritual in the spirit realm, or if these guys just realized there's something different about this guy. Like, what happened? But clearly they realized, there's some power here with this teacher, Jesus. Because I don't know why else you would fall down. It's like, get back up. I'm the one you're looking for. And then Jesus marches to complete his mission.
Yeah.
Oh, God, you're so good. So I think that's all we got.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening to the podcast or watching. And can keep reading. Look at John 18. We got a couple more days of John, and then we'll be on to the next book. So that's what we got.
Jesus died for you guys. He loves you, and he rose again.
Yes, he did.
God bless you.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his countenance toward you and give you his peace. Have a great day.